Hello and welcome everybody to the home of British motor racing, the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, playing host to the second event of the season for the Ginetta Junior Championship, which kicked off a couple of weeks ago at the Donington Park Grand Prix circuit. Today though we have our next instalment of this always exciting championship, a grid pretty much full of rookie drivers entering into, for most of them, only their second ever weekend of car racing. We had a record-breaking grid last time out at Donington Park, 29 cars taking to the grid, the biggest grid we'd ever had for a season opener, and I'm delighted to say we have retained a 29-car grid for event number 2. The sun is shining, it's pretty much a picture-perfect day here at Silverstone. The temperature climbing towards 20 degrees, no rain forecast. When was the last time we were able to say that on a Silverstone 500 race weekend? And the fans, I'm delighted to say, are out in force. I was driving into the circuit this morning at about 10 AM and the place was absolutely packed, which for the Saturday of a British GT event here at Silverstone is absolutely fabulous to see. And it's the Ginetta Junior drivers who now have the opportunity to take centre stage. At Donington Park last time out, it was all about Lewis Goff. Lewis Goff dominated, winning all 3 races, leading every lap of racing across those first 3 events, but he's qualified only on the 3rd row today. Harry Bartle, who we caught a glimpse of there, has qualified on pole position. He was twice a runner-up in the races at Donington, and he's got Riley Cranham for our racing alongside him. Riley hunting for his first podium of the season. Lewis Goff, as I said, starting from the 3rd row alongside Jesse Phillips. They were 2 of the front runners in the races at Donington Park. The first of which, in particular, Lewis Goff utterly dominated. He disappeared up the road, pulled about a 2-second lead by the end of the opening lap and was never seen again. Races 2 and 3 were closer, particularly race 3, which saw a rain shower come about 2/3 of the way through, and the drivers had to really do their best just to cling on to the road through the final few laps, with Lewis just managing to fend off a late race charge to hang on to the victory. Very different kind of racetrack here at Silverstone though. The wide open spaces of the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, the long straights, the high speed nature of this course means that we always get lots of slipstreaming, lots of side-by-side racing. In fact, just side-by-side is seen as pretty tame around here in Ginetta Juniors. 3 or 4 abreast heading down the Hanger Straight is not uncommon, and I expect we're going to see be treated to an absolutely thrilling set of races. 1 today, 2 tomorrow here at Silverstone. Cars then launch onto their green flag lap. There's the number 46 car, Jacob Ashcroft for Elite Motorsport, another driver gunning for maybe a first podium of the season this weekend. Among the 29 cars on the grid, only 5 of them are returning drivers, which puts into perspective just how many new faces we've got in the paddock this season, and that's always exciting in a junior category. You sort of expect the rookies to take a couple of rounds sometimes to come on strong. However, we have a rookie on the front row. Harry Bartle is not a rookie, he's on pole, but Riley Cranham, in only his 2nd event in the championship, lines up alongside him. Daniel Oliver for Elite is 3rd, with Harrison Mackie for company on that 2nd row, and all Elite Motorsport row 2. Then comes the early championship leader Lewis Goff, with Jesse Phillips alongside him on row 3. Row 4 for Jacob Ashcroft and Max Murray. Good to have Max back on the grid this season. Likewise, Noah Young returns, with Henry Carter alongside him at the back of the top 10. Then Devin Hagelin for Elite Motorsport in the number 8 car. He was the Ginetta Junior Scholarship winner over the winter. He's got Melvin Kalustian alongside him, and Melvin, the Red Bull Junior driver for this season. Then Sebastian Lush and Henry Cameron, with Kai Vetch and Vicky Farfus on row 8. Vicky Farfus, daughter of long-time GT and touring car star Augusto Farfus, the Brazilian, on the 8th row. Row 9, Vladislav Tomanchuk and Dominic Darling, the Scot, with the top 20 completed by Josh Watts, who is a little out of position, I would argue. He should move forward. He lines up alongside Addison Smith. Jorn Helder is next, with Andrew Robinson alongside him on row 11. Row 12, Bailey Doherty and Pierce Wade, the Canadian, with Jake Woods and Ethan Brass making up row number 13. Row 14 for Oscar Stockley King and Aniso Mapumulo, with Samuel Del Gurdio at the back of this multinational grid of Ginetta Junior drivers. So as I said, Donington Park belonged very much to Lewis Goff. Can he continue that winning streak here at Silverstone? Well, to do so, he'll have to get the better of this man, Harry Bartle, who lines up on pole position. He carries one of our onboard cameras, the Pace Performance squad, gunning for victory here today. We also have an onboard camera with Harrison Mackie. Harrison was right in the thick of a lot of the battling at Donington. Didn't always come out of it the best, it has to be said, but he was certainly getting himself stuck in. We'll also have the onboard views from Melvin Clousdian, who is gesticulating at someone or something, maybe just telling us what position he's aiming for at the end of the race, or perhaps was gesturing to the drivers around him as they headed down the Wellington Straight. Melvin Clousdian, this year's Red Bull Junior driver, and of course it was a Red Bull Junior driver who claimed the championship last year in the shape of Rocco Coronel, who's now moved on to racing in Formula 4 and had a successful Winter Series campaign in Formula 4 machinery, did Rocco. And Melvin Clousdian, hoping to follow in his footsteps, had a solid, if unspectacular, opening weekend of the season with 2 6th places and a 3rd for Melvin. That 3rd place coming in that slightly rain-affected 3rd race of the weekend. But it took Rocco Coronel a couple of races to find his feet last year, and once he started winning, he never really stopped, did he? Certainly through the middle 3rd of the season, Rocco Coronel was almost unstoppable, so there's time yet for Melvin Clousdian to very much carry on that Red Bull form into 2026. The Red Bull car, as it was last year, run by R Racing, who have claimed the last 5 Ginetta Junior Championships, R Racing, and they're looking for a 6th in a row this season. Back couple of rows of the grid then, more or less into place. Harry Bartle and Riley Cranham then start from the front row. The 20-minute first race of the weekend, round 4 of the championship, about to burst into life. All eyes on the starting gantry above the timing line on the national pit straight. When they go out, we're away in racing. That happens now, and it's a good start made from pole position there by Harry Bartle. These cars limited in brake horsepower, so it takes them a little while to get going. So you don't often see a lot of jockeying for position into the first corner, but once they build up the speed and that slipstream starts to take effect, that very much starts to change. Wide line there for Vladislav Tomanchuk, a couple of them running even wider. That was Josh Watts looking to make some early ground, but it is Bartle who holds the early lead, and Riley Cranham tagging along with him. The first side-by-side battle is for 4th, and that was Harrison Mackie sliding through on the inside line. Clousdian's off into the runoff area. Another one further back, in fact 2 or 3 of them taking the shortcut down at Maggots and Beckett's, and they head then onto the Hanger Straight, the first of the really good overtaking opportunities. Down the straight we head then, as Harry Bartle considers now whether or not he needs to defend the race lead from Riley Cranham. Maybe not Cranham, but perhaps Daniel Oliver, who looks to make a move into 2nd position. The Elite Motorsport driver nips to the inside of Cranham's R Racing car, levers him aside at the apex. They both run wide though, and that opens the door invitingly for Harrison Mackie in the number 24 car. He pulls alongside his teammate. They both dispatched of Cranham, and they're possibly bringing Lewis Goff through with them as well. Yes, they have. So Oliver hangs on to 2nd. There is Lewis Goff behind us. We're on board here, I think, with Harrison Mackie looking backwards from the 3rd place car. Car pointing the wrong way in the middle of the club complex. That could have been absolute disaster. Not sure who that was. One of the many Elite Motorsport cars, and there's a car with damaged steering, which I suspect is not unrelated. And that car will be pulling over to the side of the road past the international circuit pits. So a little bit of early drama in this first race of the weekend. That's Vicky Farfus, I think, running wide down at the right-hander. And a big sideways moment for Harrison Mackie, who does well to catch the car, but loses 4 or 5 positions as a result. It's been a lively first lap, this, for Harrison Mackie. And he has plummeted down the order, rather. That is Jacob Ashcroft, his Elite Motorsport teammate. He is the McLaren Junior driver. Well, I promised you 4 wide racing. This is not necessarily the part of the circuit I expected to see it at, though. Out onto the Wellington Straight. A lot of contact, and a car nearly getting fired out of the pack towards the tail end of the field. That could have been disaster as well. They all just about kept pointing vaguely in the right direction as Harry Bartle weaves his way through the final sequence of corners. Still the race leader. Look at that though, an armada of R Racing cars now starting to queue up behind the leading 2. They're led, predictably perhaps, by the star of the show from Donington last time out, Lewis Goff. He's got 3 teammates in tow as they complete the opening lap. So Bartle leads, Oliver second, then comes the R Racing train, Goff, Cranham, Phillips, and then Max Murray in 6th position ahead of Harrison Mackie and Jacob Ashcroft, with Noah Young inside the top 10 and Melvin Cloustian in 10th position after that little wayward moment down at Beckett's. We're on board now with the Red Bull Junior man, Melvin Cloustian, the Swedish driver, heading down into that Maggots-Beckett sequence of corners. At the front, though, it does look as though Lewis Goff is the man most likely to make a move. He's already come through from 5th on the grid to 3rd. He slides his way out through Chapel and onto the Hanger Straight, well within slipstream range of Daniel Oliver's car in 2nd. In fact, almost pushing Daniel Oliver down the straight. They both, of course, will now start to close in on Harry Bartle, who tries to defend and can't quite get to the inside line in time. Has to leave the door open, and he might find himself on the bottom step of the podium before much longer. Sweeps into the corner, carried good speed into Stowe there. That will give him the inside line down through the Vale. He might just hang on to this. Lewis Goff is trying to find a gap as well. There's no room to the inside because Bartle is still defending his race lead, and successfully so. That was good driving that from Harry Bartle. A lot of drivers, I think, having been hung out to dry at Stowe, might have accepted a loss of position, but he did not accept it and successfully hangs on to the lead. Goff now pulls to the inside of Oliver and looks to try and move his R Racing car up into 2nd spot. He's got the inside line there in the pit lane, unfortunately, is the number 8 car. That's Devon Hagelin, the Elite Motorsport driver. He might have been the car that was rotated down at Club Corner, I think. Maybe get a look at that again later on. Big lunge up the inside for the 26. That's Jesse Phillips. Jesse Phillips, the Winter Series champion in Ginetta's annual competition in November at the end of the previous season. He then loses that place again immediately at the loop as this group of cars, sort of 3rd place on back, refuses to give an inch. Down the Wellington Straight we head. Leader still Bartle, Goff 2nd, Oliver 3rd. It's side by side for 4th, and a bit of unnecessary paint traded there between Harrison Mackie and Max Murray. Was that? No, it's the 18 car of Riley Cranham. And it's Cranham who comes out of that the better, really, bringing with him Jesse Phillips. And Harrison Mackie has to settle back in line behind. Amblerfield corner, that little squabble going on for 4th place, though, is just allowing the leading 3 to get away slightly. That's Cloustian out through the dirt. Just about manages to grab a spot in line ahead of one of his teammates there. But Melvin Cloustian just not quite able to make the forward progress that he would have liked here. Fastest lap belongs to Josh Watts, who I said would move forward. He's 14th now, Josh Watts, having started 19th. The Performance 1 driver who had a bit of a weekend to forget at Donington Park, really. Another returning driver, Josh. And he had 2 non-finishes last time out at Donington, but after a troubled qualifying session, he's now starting to make his presence felt. As here, the leading 2, and it is very much now a leading 2, do battle at the head of the field. Lewis Goff applying the pressure to Harry Bartle, and they're just dropping Oliver slightly now in 3rd position. Harrison Mackie there was wide in the background. Is this where Lewis Goff makes the move, or is he going to choose to work with the race leader? No, nips to the inside. This is going to be a pretty textbook pass, I think, if he's late enough on the brakes, which he is. And Lewis Goff gets the lead of the race into Stowe Corner, so that didn't take long, did it? 2.5 laps not spent at the front of the field, but they're the first 2.5 laps of the season that Lewis Goff hasn't led. He has been the one to beat, very much so, in the early stages of the 2026 campaign. He reasserts his authority now as the race leader. Midfield squabbles still going on. We're looking back here at Jacob Ashcroft's car. Jacob having slipped back now down to where he started, or at least at the start of the lap was 7th. He's actually 6th place now as they head down the Sir Lewis Hamilton Straight and into Abbey Corner. The elite car here in danger of being hung out to dry. That's the number 11 of Henry Cameron. Just about gets back in line. That's Josh Watts doing some rally crossing. That's a fast part of the circuit to be bouncing over the grass, and did well to catch the car. In fact, immediately then turns to attack as they head into the village braking zone. Lunge up the inside for Noah Young, and that's a good move made at the expense of Max Murray. Max Murray will try to cut back on the exit, does cut back on the exit. Max Murray will, I think, reclaim the position. Max, remember, the last we saw of him on a British GT event, at least, was when he had that really nasty accident at Brands Hatch at the end of last year and had to sit out the final round due to injury. Great to have him back, though. He, again, was a top 10 runner at the Donington Park season opener. In fact, had a best finish of 4th in the opening race of the season. To the brakes into Brooklands comes another little battle pack. That's the 47 car of Dominic Darling, the white and pink car, with the number 9 of Bailey Doherty behind for MK Racing. And number 3 is Jorn Helder for Project R. Good to see a lot more teams these days entered into Ginetta Junior competition. Over recent years, it's all been about Elite Motorsport versus R Racing, but it really does seem this season in particular as though the likes of Pace Performance, for example, are definitely going to give those teams a run for their money. There is the leading Pace Performance car of Harry Bartle, tucked in behind Lewis Goff. The good news here for Bartle is that he's not being dropped by the race leader. As I said, that season opener at Donington Park, when Lewis Goff hit the front from pole position, admittedly, in that first race, he disappeared up the road. But here at Silverstone, that was always going to be a little bit harder to do with the power of that slipstream. You only have to be within half a second, maybe even a second of the car in front, and you will start to feel the benefit of the draft. And Harry Bartle is well within that range. We're on board now with the erstwhile race leader, who interestingly does not choose to recreate the pass made by Lewis Goff against him a lap ago. Oh, look at that beautiful onboard shot. You can see the way the drivers balance the car into the corner, deliberately inducing some oversteer to get the car rotated, and then counter-steering all the way through the turn, balancing the car on the throttle. These cars may not be the most powerful cars we'll see racing this weekend, but they are certainly very challenging to get the optimum lap time out of. It's all about momentum in these cars. You've got to keep your minimum mid-corner speed as high as possible. And that requires a driver who's comfortable with the car moving around underneath them. 63 there making a move. That's Henry Carr to the white and green car, to the inside of Doughty as they head down the Sir Lewis Hamilton straight. Vicky Farfus ahead in the all-pink number 2 for Paradigm. Good to have Paradigm competition on the grid. We've seen them, of course, enjoy success in GT racing in this country and further afield. Good to have them represented in Ginetta Juniors for 2026. Leading to them out onto the Wellington straight. This is the 4th lap of the race. Black and white warning flag for car 6 for exceeding track limits. That's Andrew Robinson. Probably won't be the last we hear of track limits infringements. But yes, there have been a handful already. I can see number 12 also being warned. Well, that is the 3rd placed driver, Daniel Oliver. So he's going to really have to be mindful of that. A penalty, a time penalty for exceeding track limits in a field as closely bunched as this will cost you not 1 or 2 positions, but half a dozen or more. So Bartle then, as we move into the second half of the race, electing for now to stay behind Lewis Goff. You can be absolutely certain he won't stay there till the end of the race. He will try and make his move, but what he wants to do is get as far away from the rest of the pack as possible, particularly that number 12 car of Daniel Oliver in 3rd. If they can pull a couple of seconds on him, then they'd be free to battle at the end and not necessarily worry about inviting him to the party. 11 there. Henry Cameron slips past his Elite Motorsport teammate. That was the 67 of Vladislav Tomanchuk. That was for 12th position. Cameron, one of those very few drivers not listed as a rookie for this year. Meanwhile, another All-Elite Motorsport scrap. This for 4th position heads onto the hangar straight. Harrison Mackie in the traditional Elite Motorsport colours, the yellow and black, keeping just about the number 46 car of Jacob Ashcroft at bay. Jacob in the McLaren Papaya colours. He's going to move to the inside here into Stowe Corner for 4th position, and I don't think his teammate will put up too much of a fight, not at this stage. I do like the touch of the blue on the wheel rims on those Elite Motorsport cars. That's a very, very well-presented livery. And 3 of them at the moment inside the top 5. Just the 1R racing car represented in that top 5. Lewis Goff, remember, started 5th, led the R Racing Challenge early on. He's the only one of the R Racing drivers who's been able to break into the top 3. Now, can he stay there at the front of the field, at least till the end? We're on board again with Bartle. Just ducks out of the slipstream there. He's not that worried, actually, about getting the slipstream effect at this stage. He knows he's quick enough to stick with Lewis Goff. So just tries to get a better view of the corner he was approaching, also trying to get a bit of cooler air to the front of the car. It is a fairly warm day here at Silverstone. When you're tucked up this close behind another car, your car is breathing in the exhaust fumes, and it obviously doesn't do a lot for engine temperatures. So where possible, drivers will try to pull out of that slipstream and keep things cool. A cooler engine, to some extent anyway, will operate more efficiently. And in these power limited cars, every horsepower that you can keep hold of is going to be valuable come the end of the race. Three Brooklands come the leading two. The question now then is, when does Bartle make his move? Fairly certain I know the where. That's going to be the Hanger Straight on the last lap, penultimate lap. There are multiple schools of thought, aren't there, as to when you actually want to hit the front in Ginetta Junior Racing. Here, I would imagine the last lap is the answer. As long as you're comfortable that you could stay with the car ahead, which Bartle seems to be, I don't see him making the move too early, because that just presents an opportunity then for Lewis Goff to come right back at him. In fact, even doing it on the Hanger Straight on the last lap might be a touch too early, because you've still got that long run down past the wing and then the Wellington Straight at the end of the lap, where the driver you just overtook could come straight back at you. 63 there. Oh, big spin for the 47. That is Dominic Darling, and he has just kept the car out of the gravel trap. He just lost a position, I think, going into Copse Corner to the 63 of Henry Carter. Maybe was just slightly offline going into Copse, lost the rear of the car. And round he went, no damage done, should be able to select first gear and get going again. The other car we lost at the start, by the way, was the 75. That was Kai Veitch, the Pace Performance driver. He was the one who had the damage to the steering, pulled off at the side of the road, but the marshals have obviously done a good job to keep that car out of harm's way and not give us the need for a safety car. There's the number 11 of Henry Cameron, another Elite Motorsport and our racing scrap heading down through the Vale. And that's the 36 car moving to defend. That's Sebastian Louche, the R Racing driver, just about holding on to the position. So into the final quarter of the race we're about to go. Jesse Phillips we're staring back at here. Jesse Phillips running in 6th position. He's been a bit anonymous in this race, really, hasn't he, Jesse? Winter Series champion last year, back end of last year. Had 2 podium finishes last time out at Donington, a 3rd in race 1 and a 2nd in race 3, sandwiching a 5th place finish in race number 2. So he's up there in the championship standings, but would love to have been battling for maybe a maiden race victory. In fact, he did lead that 3rd and final race into the final corner with a big lunge up the inside of Lewis Goff. But Lewis got back past him again on the run to the flag in what was a dramatic finish. Would this race be heading a similar way? I suspect so. Jesse now under threat look from the 46 of Jacob Ashcroft, the McLaren liveried Elite Motorsport car. Trying to get the side draft down the Wellington Straight is the Elite driver. He's already on the inside line, but he was just losing a bit of momentum down the straight. Gets to the 2nd apex there at Brooklands first. That's where the corner tightens up. Manages to claim that spot. And there's one more position he could yet get before the end of the race, isn't there? Because Harrison Mackey's number 24 car has well and truly lost touch with the leaders now. He's slipped back into their clutches and could be under some threat into the final couple of laps, which we are probably not quite into, actually. The leaders crossed the line with just over 4 minutes to go. They're lapping, if I know, so yes, that will be the 2 laps to go. They're lapping just under 2:40. Lap record around here, set a couple of years ago by Hugo Schwarzer, is a 1:38.8. We're nearly a second away from that right now. Ashcroft, actually, in that number 46 car, holding the fastest lap, and you can see why he is suddenly looking very racy. But again, does he choose to make the move early, or does he wait until the last lap, knowing that likely 4th position is as good as things will get in this race? They're 1.8 seconds behind the 3rd placed car out of Daniel Oliver. And there was a bit of gesticulating going on there, wasn't there, as well, from Ashcroft? I think maybe trying to convey to his teammate that they were going to work together. Gives him a bit of a shove down the Hanger Straight. Bump drafting, definitely something we see in Ginetta Junior Racing. The faster circuits, such as this one. As the car behind chooses to stay in the slipstream rather than pull out and make a pass, that just slows both cars down and reduces their forward progress. There's the confirmation of that fastest lap, a 36.695, so we're 9/10 of a second away from lap record pace, but Jacob Ashcroft is the fastest man out on track. Down towards Abbey Corner we head. The lonely man is Daniel Oliver in third position. Could he be caught by this group behind, I wonder? Let's have a look at the sectors. Sector 1, he was 2/10 slower than Harrison Mackie. Gained a tenth of that back in the middle sector, though, so no, they're not really gaining on the car ahead. There's not a lot to be gained here for Harry Bartle, though, as he tucks back onto the rear bumper of Lewis Goff. So we're getting down to crunch time now in this first race of the weekend. The next lap will be the last one. And Harry Bartle, you feel, is going to make a move. As he flexes his wrist maybe in preparation of a dive, possibly into Brooklands. I'd be surprised if he goes this early. He does think about it, in fact does more than think about it, goes to the inside line and takes the lead away. So, very interesting. Harry Bartle, with just over a lap to go, moves to the front of the field. But is that too early? Lewis Goff will definitely have opportunities now on this final lap to repass the 73 car. And if he chooses to do it quite late in the lap, then he reduces the likelihood of Bartle coming back at him. Bartle's defending on the run down towards Copse Corner. Final lap begins, and do not count out Daniel Oliver from this race. He was 1.3 seconds behind them at the start of the lap, but if they start battling, he is going to catch them in a hurry. Fastest lap set by Bartle that time, 39.664, but Lewis Goff has got the overlap heading towards Maggots and Beckett's. He's on the inside line. In fact, he doesn't need the inside line. He's almost cleared the 73 car already, and Bartle will try and stand his ground. Ultimately, couldn't go around the outside at Beckett's. He's now completely offline, heading into Chapel, where he's got the inside, though. Fantastic driving from Bartle. There's a bit of contact on the apex. Here comes Oliver, closing all the time. And this has got a three-way fight for the win all over it. They touch again, coming onto the hanger straight. That was almost a bit of a disaster there for Bartle, who could easily have been fired off the road completely. Goff pulls to the outside, in towards Stowe Corner. Oliver is there, though. Does he find a gap on the inside? No. Goes to the outside line instead and looks to try and get a good exit from the corner, but he's picked up a 5-second penalty. I mentioned that Oliver had been warned about track limits earlier on. He has now been given a 5-second penalty, so you can sort of take him out of this battle, except he's still very much physically there on the track, dicing with these two. Oh, another touch there between Goff and Bartle. Bartle slides his way into the club chicane. Lewis Goff has to go the long way round through Club Corner. That will give him more momentum off the turn, but he'll be on the wrong side of the road heading into Abbey. It's a brave man who will go right round the outside into this next quick right-hander. Is Lewis Goff feeling that it's worth the risk? Well, in the end, didn't really have a say in the matter, because Daniel Oliver gave the push to Bartle and moved through into second place himself. Handful of corners to go, but you can overtake into pretty much all of them. Here comes Oliver for the lead on the road, at least. Remember, he's got this time penalty, but I don't think he knows about it. He is battling as if he can still win the race, but he didn't make the move stick there. That opens the door for Goff, who sweeps to the outside into the loop. Bartle is sideways. He's sliding wide into Lewis. They touch again coming off the corner, but Lewis Goff wriggles his way through into the lead of the race, and the winner of all three races at the Donington Park season opener is back in front with 2 corners to go. There's another straight first, though, the Wellington straight. The slipstream will bunch them back together, but Daniel Oliver, I don't think, is close enough to attack. He's busy defending his second position for Bartle, and I think this might just let Lewis Goff off the hook. Lewis Goff then leads through Brooklands for the final time into the hairpin at Luffield, and Harry Bartle, I think, might have to settle for third again on the road. He will regain that second position on corrected times, but Daniel Oliver did have an important part to play in that battle in the end, and he has helped in the end Lewis Goff to claim a 4th victory from 4 races. Lewis Goff picks up exactly where he left off at Donington by winning the opening race here at Silverstone. Second for Bartle. It'll be third on corrected times for Jacob Ashcroft for Elite Motorsport. So our racing from pace performance from Elite, the top 3, with Harrison Mackie coming through in 4th. Where did Oliver end up? 10th for Daniel Oliver. I said that a time penalty in this sort of racing will cost you a lot of time, and it absolutely did. Second on the road, 10th after the 5 seconds were applied. That's how tight it was. The top 10 covered by 5.2 seconds at the end of a 20-minute race. That is remarkable. But Lewis Goff managed to come out on top. A fantastic performance, that, from Lewis, who, bided his time, didn't he, in the early stages, picked them off one by one, got to the front midway through. But it was that decision for Harry Bartle to make the move coming to the start of the last lap that intrigued me. I'm not saying it was the wrong decision. There's a reason, after all, that I'm a commentator, not a racing driver, but we do often see drivers wait until that final lap to make the move. He didn't, and ended up finishing second. After the field streamed through, we might have lost Josh Watts on the final lap. Josh Watts hasn't come through in the number 22 car, the black and orange car. Not sure where he's got to, but he's, according to the timing screen anyway, not made it to the line. Harry Bartle, the junior class winner, which basically means he's the best of the non-rookies. I said at the top of the show that usually the rookie drivers take a few rounds to come into their own. Not the case this year, is it? This is a replay of what happened at the end. At this point, Lewis Goff is third, but he just finds a gap on the outside into the loop, and Bartle desperately tries to close that door, but Lewis Goff's already there. There's a touch between them, but Goff had the momentum at that point on the outside line through the loop, and that was that, really. Oliver couldn't get to him. This was the Bartle eye view. Look at him try and open the steering up. In fact, he's already sideways, not opening the steering up. He's just trying not to spin the car, as he was very aggressively planting his right foot to the floor there. They might not have a ton of power, these cars, but enough to break traction if you stamp on the throttle there. And did well to catch the slide and also to avoid careering into Lewis Goff, who came through to win the race in the end by just under 0.6 of a second. That was the biggest gap between any two cars in the top 8 or 9 positions in the end. Harry Bartle second, it is Jacob Ashcroft third, with Harrison Mackie and Jesse Phillips completing the top 5. Then it was Melvin Kalustian ahead of Noah Young and Max Murray, with Riley Cranham 9th and Daniel Oliver second on the road, but a 5-second track limits penalty demotes him to 10th. Addison Smith was 11th ahead of Sebastian Loesch and Vladislav Tomancek, with Henry Cameron and Henry Carter together at the back end of the top 15. Then it was Bailey Doughty, Vicky Barfus, Jorn Helder, Ethan Brass and Pierce Wade at the back of the top 20. Outside of the top 20, Andrew Robinson, Dominic Darling after his spin, Jake Woods, Samuel Del Gaudio, Oscar Stockley-King, and Niso Mafumalu, with Josh Watts, never did make it to the line, nor, of course, did Devon Hagelin, who retired to the pits, and Kai Veitch, whose car sustained damage, I think, in an incident on lap 1 with Devon down at the club chicane. So, fascinating opening race of the day. Certainly the toughest of the victories that Lewis Goff has claimed so far this year, but it is another victory, and he will, of course, extend his championship lead as a result. Let's take a look back, shall we, at some of the highlights. Round 4 of the Ginetta Junior Championship here at Silverstone saw Lewis Goff, the triple winner from Donington, with a little bit of work to do. Started 5th on the grid, whilst his R-Racing teammate Melvin Kalustian was off the road down at Beckett's on the opening lap. There was early drama down at the club chicane with a spin for Devon Hagelin. He wasn't the only one in strife. The 75 car of Kai Veitch, unfortunately, retiring with damage. It didn't take long, though, for Lewis Goff to fight his way through to the front of the field. 2.5 laps, to be precise, before he got himself out in front of erstwhile leader Harry Bartle. There was a mid-race spin for Dominic Darling at Cops Corner. Did well to keep the car out of the gravel, but continued on his way. There was lots of Elite Motorsport on Elite Motorsport battling, with Harrison Mackie desperately trying to keep himself in podium contention. Jesse Phillips was joining in the fun as well, the Winter Series champion, getting properly stuck into some of the bump drafting and slipstreaming action down the Wellington Straight. At the front of the pack, well, it was decision time for Harry Bartle when to make the move back into the lead against Lewis Goff. He decided to do it towards the end of the penultimate lap, but that gave Lewis plenty of time to come back at him. They were joined by Daniel Oliver, who gained 1.5 seconds on them in a couple of corners, but then picked up a 5-second track limits penalty. Lewis was able to hang on to the lead round the outside through the loop, and then was uncontested through the final couple of corners. He crossed the line first to claim a 4th race victory of the season in 4 races. Checkered flag for Lewis Goff, with Harry Bartle second and Jacob Ashcroft in third.